You ever felt like your whole world was ripped from under your feet while everyone else acted like nothing changed? That was me. My name is Naya. I was 17 when my mother, the only parent I'd ever known, decided that being a mother was no longer her priority. It wasn't something she said out loud, it was something she did. And it started with a door. The door to my room, now hanging open for her new husband's son, a stranger who walked into our home like a king. And what I did next? Let's just say, it was the kind of gift no one ever forgets. We lived in a modest, two-bedroom flat in Abuja, nothing fancy, but it was ours. My mom worked as a school administrator, always juggling papers and staff meetings. She was strict, tough, and always said she didn't need a man. I believed her. Until Uncle Kenneth came along. He wasn't my uncle, of course. That's just what Nigerian mothers do, they call every grown man uncle until suddenly, he's your new father. I first met him when he dropped her off at night after a women's conference. Then he started coming inside. Staying late. Spending nights. I didn't say anything. I just watched. The first red flag should have been the silence, the kind that creeps in between people who used to talk every night. My mom and I used to share everything. She'd braid my hair, ask about school, even quiz me on current affairs. Now? Her eyes were always on her phone. Smiling at messages I couldn't see. One Saturday morning, I came home from my friend Ifeoma's house and saw a strange boy sitting on our couch. My mother didn't even introduce him properly, just said, "This is Junior. He'll be staying with us for some time. He's Kenneth's son." I blinked. How long is some time? She laughed, like I was being dramatic. Don't be rude. You'll be sharing space. Except sharing wasn't the plan. That night, when I tried to go to my room, I found it locked. My own room. "Mommy?" I called. She stepped out of the kitchen like nothing was wrong. "Oh. I forgot to tell you. We moved your things to the guest room. Junior needed somewhere permanent." Permanent. That word made something snap in me. I walked into the guest room, smaller, stuffy, barely enough space for my books and clothes. My framed photos were dumped on the floor, my diary half open, and my mattress dumped on the floor like an afterthought. I stared at the chaos in silence, a lump crawling up my throat. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard Junior in my room, laughing on phone calls, blasting music, slamming drawers. I felt invisible. I felt replaced. By the following week, everything shifted. Kenneth was in the house every other day. Mom cooked things she never made before. They'd laugh, whisper, and send me on errands like I was just another house help. Junior took my desk for his gaming laptop. My curtains were changed. Even my perfume, the one Dad gave me before he died, was now too strong for a boy's room and got thrown out. I stopped talking at home. At school, I tried to smile. Ifeoma noticed something was wrong. I told her the truth in bits, the new stepbrother, the stolen room, the way my mother looked at me like I was now in the way. But the moment that really cracked my soul was on a Thursday evening. I came home early from school to grab my assignment flash drive. I walked into my old room without knocking, forgetting for a moment that it was no longer mine. There, I saw Junior, shirtless, sweating, and on my bed with a girl I didn't know. My bed. He jumped up like a guilty dog, but the girl laughed, mocking me. I backed away slowly and closed the door before I said or did anything I'd regret. That night, I told my mom. Word for word. Her response? "Naya, stop acting like a bitter old woman. It's just a room. And he's a boy. Boys make mistakes. Be mature." My ears rang. I couldn't believe it. That's when something inside me broke. The girl who always obeyed, always kept quiet, she died that night. And someone colder took her place. The gift. The plan came to me while I was organizing the school lab with my chemistry teacher. He left me to clean up some beakers, and as I stood there surrounded by acids and indicators and powders, an idea crept into my mind. Not murder, but something unforgettable. I started collecting. Slowly. Quietly. Cleaning powder from the janitor's closet. A little ammonia from the lab. Some pepper spray I bought with my saved lunch money. I made sure not to Google anything at home. I read chemistry books. I asked subtle questions. And I practiced, once. One Friday night, I waited until everyone was asleep. Kenneth and Junior were snoring. My mother's room door was shut. I walked into the kitchen with a glass in my hand and pulled out the bottle of Maltina, her favorite. I mixed in the compound. Just enough to irritate, not enough to kill. I poured some for myself too, but from a fresh bottle. Then I set the scene. Early the next morning, I made breakfast. Toast, eggs, and the spiked Maltina, all on a tray, just like she used to do for me when I was younger. "Mummy, happy Saturday," I said sweetly. She looked surprised. "What's this for?" "For you," I smiled, placing it on her lap. She sipped the Maltina almost immediately, complimenting the sweetness. It took exactly 12 minutes. First, the itchiness began. Then coughing. She scratched her throat, then her eyes watered, nose running, stomach clenching. She cried out for help, but I was already standing over her with a glass of water, watching. Not smiling. Not laughing. Just watching. Junior and Kenneth rushed in. We took her to the clinic. The doctor said it was a chemical allergic reaction, possibly from food contamination. She stayed there for 2 days. When she came back, her voice was hoarse, and she barely spoke. But I did. I sat her down and said, "You gave my room to a stranger. You ignored me, mocked my feelings, and chose a man over your child. So I gave you something to remember me by, a little discomfort. Nothing permanent. But I promise, next time, it won't be so soft." She stared at me in shock. "I didn't poison you, Mom. I just reminded you that I exist. And I can hurt too." She didn't speak for a long time. But I saw it in her eyes, fear, regret, maybe even guilt. From that day on, everything changed. She didn't give me my room back, but Junior moved out shortly after. Kenneth stopped visiting as often. And my mother? She started knocking on my door again. The silence that followed her return from the clinic didn't last. At first, things were calm, almost awkwardly so. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes for days. She didn't thank me. She didn't confront me. But I knew she understood. Something between us had cracked, not just broken, but warped into something cold and permanent. Junior moved out 2 weeks later. He said it was temporary, but I knew better. He packed his things while avoiding my gaze, like I might throw acid on his skin just for looking. I didn't need to. His own guilt was eating him alive. Besides, the gift wasn't meant for him, not directly. It was meant for the woman who let him disrespect me and called it maturity. But it wasn't over. Because secrets have a funny way of crawling out into the light. It started with a careless mouth, Junior's. He was trying to impress some boys at his new school, bragging about how his crazy stepsister poisoned his stepmom just for giving up a room. They laughed. Until one of them, Kalechi, recorded the whole story and uploaded it on TikTok. With my name. It didn't take long for it to spread. By Monday morning, I walked into my school compound and felt the change immediately. Whispers. Eyes. Phones lowered when I passed. Even Ifioma avoided me. I tried to brush it off until I was called to the principal's office. She was sitting there, stern and exhausted, with her gold-rimmed glasses pulled halfway down her nose. "Naya," she said softly. "Tell me what happened at home." I hesitated. Nothing happened. She tapped her fingers on a printout. The transcript from the video. My name. The words poison, revenge, stepbrother. All bold. "You're one of the top students here," she said. "But this is serious. If there's truth to this, I may be forced to involve social services. Or worse, the police." My heart sank. Not because I was scared of punishment, but because suddenly, my mother's shame became mine. The story was out, but twisted. In their version, I wasn't a girl pushed aside and ignored. I was a psycho. And my mother? She played the role of a fragile victim perfectly. That night, she came to my room, eyes red and puffy. "You think you're so smart, Naya," she said through clenched teeth. "Look at what you've done. Look at how you've embarrassed me. People think I raised a monster." I stared at her. "Didn't you?" She slapped me. For the first time in my life, she slapped me. Not out of discipline, but out of rage. Out of fear. And I just stood there. Still. Unblinking. "I warned you," I whispered. She froze. "What did you say?" "I warned you," I repeated, calmer now. "And this is just the consequence of what happens when a mother forgets her own child." The next few days felt like standing under a slow-dripping tap of shame. Teachers began treating me differently, not with hostility, but hesitation. Like I was a ticking bomb. Classmates whispered more openly. Ifioma avoided me completely. I'd been exiled, not by force, but by whispers. And my mother, she wore her pain like jewelry. Going to church, crying in prayer, telling Pastor Isaiah to pray against the spirit of bitterness in her daughter. She never once told them what she did. Never mentioned giving away my room. Never mentioned the boy in my bed. Never spoke of how I had become invisible in my own home. And so the world believed her version. Until the hearing. The school called it a disciplinary board review, but it felt more like a trial. There were 5 people seated at the panel: the principal, 2 teachers, a child psychologist, and 1 representative from social welfare. They called me in. Then my mother. Junior didn't attend. Kenneth was out of town. Convenient. At first, it was all questions about the video, about the chemicals, about my intentions. My mother played her part well. Cried. Told them I'd changed. Said she never knew I was hurting so deeply. Pretended to be the clueless parent who just wanted her daughter back. I sat still, letting her speak. When they turned to me, I told them everything. Calmly. Clearly. Truthfully. I told them about the day she gave away my room. The night I found Junior with a girl on my bed. The perfume bottle she threw out. The way I was told to be mature about losing the only space in the house I could call mine. The child psychologist leaned forward, watching me closely. "But why the drink, Naya?" she asked softly. "Why go that far?" I paused. Looked at my mother. Then answered. Because she didn't hear me when I cried. Or when I begged. Or when I sat silently in a room too small to hold all the pain she caused. I gave her that drink to make her feel what I felt, just for one night. Silence filled the room. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was clarity. They didn't expel me. They placed me on academic probation and recommended therapy. Social services came to the house, not to arrest me, but to monitor the environment. My mother hated that. The judgment. The gossip. The pitying looks from the church women. But she never spoke about it again. One evening, weeks later, I walked into the living room and saw my things neatly packed in boxes, all from my old room. My books. My bedsheets. My perfumes. Even my diary. She stood awkwardly by the window. I thought, maybe we could repaint it, she said, not looking at me. Make it yours again. If you want. I didn't smile. I didn't jump. I just nodded. Okay. We didn't hug. There were no apologies. But it was a start. And my final gift? I forgave her. Not because she deserved it. But because I did. Holding on to pain would only poison me next time. Sometimes the loudest screams come from silence. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not violence, but truth. And sometimes the most unforgettable gift is not pain, but awakening. Let them talk. Let them whisper. I had my room back. And more importantly, I had myself.